when I realized that I can bring my warmth and my personality into my work, and I can work with, founders who are just like me, like it really was a game changer.
Welcome back to this season of The Climb, a journey where listening to your heart reveals your true potential. With the Intermountain philosophy, on this show, we're here to teach you how to embrace the limitless nature of growth.
Women are reshaping the world, driven by their dreams. Our mission is to empower you to listen to your heart, pursue those dreams, to create a community where women like you can begin the climb to true success together.
In a world of comparisons, reconnect with why your work matters through inspiring stories of female entrepreneurs all around the world.
Discover what it means to build your legacy with authenticity and face your inner challenge with confidence.
Join us on this podcast as we explore how to become fearless, unleashing your true potential for you and your business.
If you choose to accept, your adventure awaits.
Ready to climb your inner mountain? The climb starts now. Hello, and welcome to this week's Climb. I'm so excited to have Lauren Bercuson with us today, attorney and founder of Storylock Legal, which I love the name, by the way, and I want to talk about that. But first, hello, how are you?
I'm good, Natasha. How are you? Thank you so much for having me today.
Of course, we've been talking about this for a while, so I'm so excited you're here, and I cannot wait to learn more about you. And speaking of, before we dive into your entrepreneurial journey, I'd love to learn about your backstory. Who is Lauren?
Absolutely. So I am a Miami native, which is shocking for many people because it's such a transient city, but I'm born and raised in Miami. Still live very close to my family. I have two great little boys. They're 9 and 11. I started practicing law in 2005 and went right into an IP practice, intellectual property practice, working at a prominent boutique firm here in Miami, and tried a different, couple of different areas of the law along the way, clerked for an appellate court judge, then had to basically take a major pivot when my little one had some pretty significant health challenges. And now I'm back. I started my own firm about a little over a year ago, and back to doing what I love, which is helping founders protect their businesses and their brands.
Amazing. Yeah. And I'm excited, while we have you here, of course, I definitely want to dive into that because I think there's a lot of I don't know if misconceptions, but not understanding what is a trademark, why we need this, what's important about it. But I'd love to hear about your transition back into starting your own firm and going full time into this. What was that like? Walk us through it.
It was a lot, basically. So I guess to give you a little bit more backstory, my son, when he's a stroke survivor, and when was in rehabilitation and getting serious PT, OT, speech therapy, as an infant every day, it was a lot. And I have always been a huge reader and a writer as well. And as just a form of solace, just to kind of ground myself, I started blogging about the books that we read together as a family. And I started the blog called Happily Ever Elephants, which is how my big one used to end every story with they lived happily ever elephants instead of happily
That's
ever
so
after.
Sweet.
I know. So anyway, in a very crazy stroke of luck, the early childhood program, which also later becomes an elementary school that my kids were going to, needed a librarian. So everyone was like, you have to apply. And I was like, well, but I'm a lawyer. I'm not a librarian. I don't know how to be a librarian. But everyone was like, but kids' books. Turns out I got the job. I was there for several years, and it was a total blessing for my family because I was able to bring all of my son's services right onto campus. And as I was doing this, I was still blogging, and I quickly realized that a lot of these moms that I was connecting with were killing it in business, but they weren't protecting themselves. So the IP attorney in me was totally alarmed that, not only were people keeping their businesses at risk, but they also didn't understand things that they also could not do. So some people were infringing on others' trademarks. Some people were taking things, copyright, taking other people's photos that they shouldn't have been taking and using. It was like the wild, wild west back, back then. So basically, when I knew that my big one was graduating from the school eventually, and my little one was no longer there, I made the transition back into law with these founders and these, bloggers at the forefront of my mind, saying, I want to help these women who are just like me protect themselves. So I started a little over a year ago, and now I work with all kinds of founders, businesses in all stages, some super early, some pre-launch, and then some that are more established. And I essentially get them set up to have all of their IP protected.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot of things to unpack there. But
There's a lot. I know,
while we're sticking with Storylock. So, okay, first, then it makes a little more sense, the name of Storylock, because story is just such a huge part of your life. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So as you said, story is a huge part of my life. It always has been. And I always say that I almost feel like my story started when, my son's health complications began, because it totally changed the course of my life. But then, as I was starting to get back into trademark law after story was, already kind of like front and center, the thing that quickly dawned on me when I was trying to, figure out like, okay, well, do these relate, is that every trademark tells a story. And, in and of itself, if you see Huggies, immediately that you're giving like the best in comfort and quality, in terms of diapers to your baby. You can see images of these, big bright-eyed babies crawling on the floor, happy parents chasing behind them or whatever, happy mom, whatever it is. But you have a whole vision in your head. You see the Tiffany blue box, right? You see that color blue. You immediately think of engagement rings and fine jewelry and, anniversary presents. But these trademarks really convey stories in and of themselves, whether it's a name, a symbol, whatever it may be. So I actually worked with a fabulous brand designer named Emily Paulson, who was also on your show. Yeah. And when I was talking, she's like, whoa, 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 whoa. She's like, this is your brand. And she helped me pull it all together. And so Storylock was basically formed, the name, because I help founders put a lock on their stories.
Oh, that's amazing.
So that I help them lock in their legacy.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. And actually, I'm sorry, I should have asked you this first. Your son, how is he doing well now?
He's doing great. He's 9. He's thriving. Okay. And, the pivot was nothing that I would have ever expected for my life, as, it often happens. But I'm so grateful that, I was able to do that, even though I kind of had to switch careers for a while. It really was in the best interest of my son and our family. He's thriving, and I'm grateful for it every day. And now I'm grateful to be back. And it really helps me focus on what I really want to do as a lawyer, which is nice.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I'm so glad to hear that. And it is crazy though, like that all like comes together kind of full circle here with like the storytelling, the blog. And actually, so I have to admit, I checked out Happily Ever Elephant. You have a huge following in that. I mean, you talked about it before. She's like, you said you have a blog. It's like, no, you've got 70,000+ followers on Instagram with this. It's incredible.
Yeah. It's funny. I feel like I was kind of one of the OGs in that space. The OGs, my kids would like tell me that I'm cringy for using that word, and it was so different back then. Like growth happened so easily. Like there was no paying for likes or follows or anything like that. And there was, especially during COVID, when all of these families were just home and stuck at home, it was a very easy way to kind of grow your account because everyone was looking for things to do with their kids, books to read, what can I do, what activities. So it took off at, in that time period. So it was great. It was a very fun journey. I've slowed down with it a little bit just because the firm takes up, a lot more time, my attorney job. And, believe it or not, my kids are bigger now. So we're not reading the same amount of picture books all the time. Like we still will read together. We'll still read chapter books. And my boys love when I read, these big novels with them. And I love it too, because it's so much fun for discussion. So it's different because I'm not, we're not going through as much on a weekly basis as we used to. Mm-hmm.
That makes sense, of course. But that is quite amazing. And I mean, I guess central to not just the storytelling aspect of all this, but also I feel like community is central to this as well, because here you've created this huge community. You also have a book club as well, right? So how has community played a part in all of this? And on top of the fact that like you're running your business, you have all these things going, right? So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear
So
this.
I did actually have a middle grade book club. So it was for fifth, sixth, and seventh graders, some eighth, some fourth, depending on, reading levels and where kids were. It was for kids all around the world. Actually, we had a kid from Tokyo, we had a couple kids in Canada, and it was awesome. We brought middle grade readers together once a month to just read great stories. And I moderated and led, the clubs. It was just very challenging because, you have to do it at night. You have to do it after school, after activities. And it was hard just with my own family. So I always said if I had, more resources or other people to help me, like it was always something that I would have loved to expand it on, but just me by myself, it became very difficult. So I had to kind of let that one go. But both of us, you too, Natasha, we're all in this amazing community called Entreprenista. And it's a community of female founders. And I actually, because of my love of reading, approached the head of Entreprenista, Stephanie Carton, who is just a wonderful, generous human. And another girl, Maggie Glensky, and I asked Stephanie if we could run and start a book club for the Entreprenistas. We wanted an escape. So we do read some nonfiction business books every once in a while, but really so many of the members in the group were like, no, we want to like escape and just like have something fun to talk about to get our minds off of our businesses because everyone's constantly hustling.
Yeah.
So we've been reading just fun fiction books of all different, different styles and genres. And it's been awesome. It's a fun way to connect with other founders without feeling like you're like hustling and networking. It's just, you come together for the love of stories.
That's amazing. I definitely need to take part in this because I look
Yeah.
at my bookshelf and it's pretty much all nonfiction. It's
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
that doesn't help like put me to sleep anymore,
Right. Exactly.
So you're also, so of course, you're a mom of two boys and you're now full-time running your business. How has that, like, I say, quote unquote, like work-life balance or work-life integration been going for you?
It's been challenging. I'm not going to lie. So last year, like basically the first year of starting the firm, I was also still working full time at the school. So I was working all day and then I would come home and I was working at night and, in the afternoons. And then I was working a lot of weekends. So it was hard. My boys, and I'm not going to lie, were on a lot of screens for the year, which really kind of kills me, but not social media, just like watching movies and playing. Like my oldest is a sports fanatic, so he was like playing NBA 2K. Like it is what it
Yeah.
is. It was what I had to do to get by. I am divorced, so I would try to work more so when my kids are with their dad, but it just, life happens. So I've officially been full-time in my firm without the other job since the middle of June. And since then it's going great. I feel like summer was obviously easier because my kids were at camp and was quieter. But now that they're back in school, I've been able to arrange it so that, my meetings are all scheduled during the day so that in the afternoons, even if I have to work, I'm working like on my own work, not, client facing things. And I'm there to like take them to basketball practice, help with homework, whatever they need. And so it's been going well. It definitely feels better now that,
Yeah.
I have, a little bit more of but more control over my schedule, I guess is the right thing to say. But it's also still challenging. Like we just started school. So like all the after school activities
Schedule.
and the sports and the tutors and the appointments, like that's all going to come up soon. So it's a work in progress. And I'm just trying to, give myself as much grace as I can because it's tough. It's a work in progress.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on going full time with this in June. That's
Thank
amazing.
you.
It's so
Thank
exciting.
you. It is. It's
Do,
fun.
what was like the moment that you made, like, how did you make that decision to go full time? Like, was there something specific that like you hit a point as you're running it sort of on the, I don't want to say side hustle, but like on the side, or was it just too much with the two things? Like how did you make that decision?
That's a good question. I mean, it was definitely too much with the two things.
Yeah,
That was for
I can
sure.
imagine.
But I really, once I saw that I could do it, like I have this post-it, and I don't know if you could see it. It says done is better than perfect. And I got this quote from my first entreprenista meeting, and Steph Carton said it in like one of the membership meetings. And when I realized that I needed to just get started, because I was like constantly like analyzing and fretting and researching, and once I just did it and I realized, okay, I can do this. Like people are coming to me, like I have clients. And once I kind of got in the groove of, okay, I don't have to post on Instagram every second. Like I can do my own thing. I can meet people my way. Like I can network with all these people virtually. And there are these amazing communities of female founders. And once I started making friends and building relationships in these communities, I was like, okay, wait a minute. Like I can do this. And there was that moment, it's like where there was like a light bulb that, I just trusted in myself and in my abilities. And I think also because I'd been through so much with my family and my little one's health, and then getting divorced. And then, I was like, if I can do that and I can get through all of those things, like I can run a business and I can be, have my own law firm and work with clients that align with my values. So I guess that was kind of, it wasn't like one light bulb moment, but it was kind of just the whole path.
Well, it's almost like letting go of those limiting beliefs, which might even be having like the belief of needing perfection, right? Like progress action is better than perfection, because at least you're doing something, and then you start to see results and you get motivated because like, oh yeah, this is actually working. And then it's like, wait a second. Yeah. You start to believe in yourself, right? And like are actually listening instead of to your brain, you're listening to your heart a bit more, right?
Exactly. And I think that, one of the things I was so used to thinking of practicing law, from my experiences, 15, 20 years ago, right? When I was a baby lawyer. And it's very different now. Like it's not, I just think of like going to these like bar meetings and these, networking events, and it was all like men in suits and old men in suits and, very stiff and formal and cold. And when I realized that I can bring my warmth and my personality into my work, and I can work with, founders who are just like me, like it really was a game changer.
Yeah. Well, I have to say kudos to you and Emily for the website and your branding, because I can feel the warmth on your website. Like I can hear Lauren when I go on there. I'm like, oh, this does sound like her. And like, it is very welcoming, because when we think about trademarking and an IP and all that, it is kind of scary to like, I don't know anything about it, and it's intimidating, right? And you've presented yourself in a way that is familiar and makes me want to learn about it versus like hide away from it.
Thank you. And Emily helps me nail that. That was like my big thing. Legal is so intimidating. And that's what I realized when I was like in this blogging community, that, you say the word lawyer and people are like, no. I don't like, I don't want to pay for that. I don't want to do it. People just get scared. I mean, that's the honest truth, men and women, both. It's just, it's not always an easy topic. So I think one of the things that I pride myself on is that when I work with my clients, like they see my warmth and my joy and like my just wanting to go the extra mile to protect them. And a lot of my clients really end up becoming friends, which is so nice. So I'm like the antithesis of the big box cold law firm. That's what I'm trying to be, at least.
Well, and I can see that. And actually I wanted to, I don't know if congratulate's the right word as well, but I'm seeing you very active on LinkedIn these days. And I can, again, feel your personality coming through this. And so that's awesome that you're figuring out that platform, because I think there are a lot of your ideal clients on there. When we first spoke and we were talking about LinkedIn and, marketing yourself, that is very different than marketing a business and such. And it's a lot harder to do, right? That is, we're used to kind of being more behind the scenes, right? So how has that journey been for you? Because you are doing a great job of showing up.
Thank you. I mean, you have been a huge inspiration, not going to lie. I love your posts. Well, I think that what I realized is, I was so focused on Instagram for so long. That's where I was with my blog. That's like where I feel like everyone is. But then when I saw, there's a bunch of other trademark attorneys on there and, posting reels and doing things, and they all have these great followings, but that's just not like really me. And when I would try to do that, like nothing was really moving the needle. And I can get so sucked into Instagram, like all of us can, right? That I just felt like I was just spending too much time there and not really getting much of a return from it. So you were one of the, initial people that really encouraged me to go on LinkedIn. So just from, talking with you, reading your posts, I've really been trying to learn, and I'm just trying to show up and experimenting with different kinds of postings, and also just your tips on engaging with others and just realizing that you can build relationships. And I think I thought for so long that LinkedIn, if I was trying to use it as a networking tool, I would have to go out there and cold pitch. I don't think I realized how people were
Yeah.
doing it. And I was like, that is not me. That is not comfortable. I'm not doing that, until I realized that that's not really how people
Yeah.
are using it, if they're using it in the right way. So that was a huge revelation for me. And it's been going really great. I've been meeting some great people. I've gotten some clients from LinkedIn, just great networking, referral partners, and just these groups of women that are building these incredible businesses that I've just, come to adore. So I truly, when I say this, I owe it all to you.
Oh.
I'm so grateful, but I do, because I would
Oh,
not
wow.
have gone that extra mile had it not been for seeing, you and what you do and how you put yourself out there. And it's been great.
Wow. I would really appreciate that. I wasn't expecting that at all, but
No, but it's
thank you.
true.
Yeah.
It's true. I
Well,
can
that's
toot your
awesome.
horn.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Thank you. I mean, it is a magical platform, I think. And going to what you're talking about a little bit earlier too, when you first started to go full time into Storylock, having those relationships, that's what helps kind of bring things forward, right? Community, real relationships, not just superficial connections, right? It's
Right.
about I think success really does lie in the depth of your relationships. And that's something that you can do and build very well on LinkedIn. And it's really helpful for creating that sense of community, right? Because entrepreneurial, that journey, it's lonely, right? So,
Yes.
I mean, you've got a lot going on, you've got my hands full and stuff, but at the same time, it's not an easy thing to do. So having those types of relationships, whether they're clients or then turn into friends, it's still there, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. How do you think overall, entrepreneurs, so there's probably other communities you're part of, how has that played a role into the growth of your business and your confidence as well?
Oh my gosh, I can't begin to rave about some of these groups enough. I mean, Entreprenista has been an absolute game changer for me and for my business. Aside from the fact that it just really helped give me a foundation of support and confidence, because it's just an encouraging group of women. It's fueled my business, in terms of, meeting clients, meeting referral partners. Everything I've needed, I've been able to get through Entreprenista. So, as I was saying, my brand and web designer, Emily, was through Entreprenista. My business coach, Carlin Bushman, is through Entreprenista. I had social media help with the social snippet that was through Entreprenista. I got
Wow.
so much LinkedIn advice from you. We met through Entreprenista. So SEO stuff. I mean, there's just everything you could possibly need is within the group. And I think the thing that makes it so special is that from the top down, from Stephanie Carton all the way down to, each and every member, there's such a spirit of camaraderie and support in the group. And really it personifies that whole, community over competition. I have become very good friends with two other trademark lawyers that I met through the group. And, people would think that we are competing, but I mean, sure, I guess technically, do we compete for the same business? I suppose, right? But
Yeah.
we now talk every day, and we're talking shop, and we're talking about our firms, and we're talking about trademarks. And it's just been amazing for me because, especially because I was out of the law for a little while when my son was, with his rehabilitation. I felt like I was missing those colleagues. And all of a sudden I had this built in, not only female founder community, but then I had this little trademark community of, female law firm owners. And it was just it was amazing. I couldn't ask for anything more in a community group like that.
Yeah. Well, I love to hear that. And actually we're trying to figure out how to find some synergies between Entreprenista and Intermountain as well, so that we can
Oh,
work together, because obviously our focus is a lot more on that inner voice, that inner strength that we have. And there's a lot of like pretty much all of our Intermountain members already are entrepreneurs as well. And so
Uh-huh.
it's actually quite great. So we're meeting with Stephanie next week with the founder of Intermountain as well, Diane, to see
Amazing.
what sort of synergies there are. Because I think going back to what you're saying, like it is about collaboration. It's about supporting one another. And however we can do that, that's something that I think it is unusual too. Like I feel like there's a lot of competition, especially between women, especially at certain levels, right? And the fact that like these two communities are trying to kind of find a way to support one another, just like you are with your other trademark attorneys. Like it is nice to have those colleagues and not feel like there's this something like trying to push you out of the way. You know what I mean? I think it's
Right.
quite unusual, and it's great to find like-minded leaders like this who want the same thing, you know?
100%. Yeah. That's really exciting. I can't wait to hear more about that hopeful,
Yeah.
potential collaboration.
Yes, me too. Me too. It should be good. So while I have you here, and I'd be so remiss if I didn't do a little bit of like trademark 101 with you, because I think it is something, I haven't looked into it at all. Although actually, I guess that's a lie, because I changed my name of my company because of you. That's right.
Yes,
When we first spoke,
when we first met in our Counting Pros t-shirts, that was our conversation. And I was like,
Oh my
wait
gosh.
a minute, Natasha.
That's so funny. Yeah, because actually, speaking of, I had just joined Entreprenista, and I was thinking about starting my business. I wasn't sure, I was kind of the same thing. I was so inspired by all these women, and I was like, why am I working for these idiots? Like I was in a strange place and it wasn't the right environment for me. And so thinking about that, and I had this name and I told you about it, and you're like, yeah, I don't know about that very nicely. And it made me rethink of, okay, this is actually probably not the route I should be going. So thank you for that. But I had no idea, right? I didn't even cross my mind the questions you were asking me and stuff. So maybe just like very briefly, high level, you can let us know like what is trademarking and why is it important?
Yeah. So trademarking essentially gives you ownership of your brand. So when you are launching a new business, when you're launching a new product or service offering within your business and you're naming that product, not only do you want to protect it, but before you even get to the protection aspect, you want to make sure that your name is clear to use. And a lot of people skip that very, very crucial first step. And they think, oh, well, I looked up on Google and I didn't, my domain name was available, or I didn't really see anything, or I registered my entity, so the name is available. That is not trademark use. So what we do, one of the first things I always do with a new business owner is I help them clear their name to make sure that they can actually use it. Because what happens is people don't realize that, if your name is Bluebird, right? And you're like, oh, but I'm spelling it Bluebyrd. Well, that doesn't matter. Like just because you're changing the spelling, just because you're adding an S, just because you're making it 2 words instead of 1 word. If you say Bluebird, I don't know how you're spelling it. I just know that if you're Bluebird
Yeah.
and I'm Bluebird and we're spelling it differently, the average consumer is going to think we're the same company, right?
Interesting. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of basically elements to trademark law where you want to make sure that your mark is available to use, and you're not going to be infringing on anybody else's identical mark, but you also want to make sure that your mark isn't confusingly similar to another mark in your industry. So again, for instance, if you were, Bluebird, but then someone else was Blooper Birdie, right? Is that confusingly similar? Like you'd have to, there's an analysis involved. So
Right.
that's like the first part of the job. And or the first part of that test. And I look at marks in the Patent and Trademark Office, common law marks that are in use but not registered yet or applied for yet, because those matter too. And then once we clear a name, I help people get their marks on file, and also can help with trademark, with copyright registrations, contracts, and stuff like that, because we just want to make sure that you own your brand free and clear. And that if anyone begins using it, a similar mark or an identical or similar mark after you, that you can take action to protect yourself, and that you have the ability to do that because, you're protected. So those are all of the kinds of things I do. And the other thing people don't realize is that your intangible assets, so your IP, your trademark registrations, that all adds value to your company. So if you are, building a company kind of already looking at your exit strategy for 10, 15 years down the road, you've got to get your IP locked in, because that's going to add significant value to your company. Same thing if you are looking for investors, right? You want to make sure your IP is secured, because otherwise investors are going to think your company is too much of a risk. So at all stages of the process, your IP ownership becomes very important. And I just love helping founders protect themselves. And one of
Yeah.
the things that I always say is that, I learned, unfortunately, that life is always going to throw us curveballs, right? Like there are always going to be things that are out of control. I mean, who knew? I didn't even know that kids, much less infants, could have strokes, right? Things are always going to happen. But when it comes to the businesses that we're building, it's so easy to protect ourselves so that we can prevent those curveballs from being thrown our way.
Right.
And let's take that fear and that anxiety off your plate. Do it right. And then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. It's like preventative care.
Exactly. And it's preventative care, and it's being proactive rather than reactive. Yeah. We have health insurance, we have car insurance in the event that something happens, right? We're being proactive. It's the same thing. You just want to protect yourself. You want that insurance policy that you're safeguarded, you have the proper protection in place, and in the event of an emergency, you're going to be okay.
Okay. And when is the best time to do this?
Yesterday. And if you didn't do it yesterday, then today. The best time to do it, one of the things that I always say is, if you are launching a business and you know that you have a name that you want to use, let's clear it and let's get you on file. We can file what's called an intent to use application before you've even launched your business. And essentially that holds your priority date, which is huge if we know that the mark is available. So some people don't do that. Some people wait. If you haven't done it yet, let's get you trademarked. There's no bad time. Any day is a good day, but the earlier you do it, the better.
All right. Okay. We probably should be talking soon. But so a lot of our listeners are actually international, and I know that you also work globally. When does it make sense for someone internationally to trademark in the US?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually work with counsel across the world. So if you are a company that is based outside of the US and you know that you are going to be offering your products or services for sale in the US, then we should get you on file here. We want to get you registered here, because as soon as you know that you're entering this market, you want to protect yourself from infringers, and you want to make sure that you own your brand. And it's hard, right? Some people have entered foreign markets. I know, oh God, I wish I could remember. Some big brands will enter, Europe or wherever outside of the US, and have had to change the spelling of their mark, or have had to change their marks a little bit because there was already there were issues in these other countries. So really, again, the earlier the better. If you know you're going to start in the US, let's get your application on file. Even if you haven't started yet, we can file an intent to use application. We can base it off of applications that you filed in other countries. There's a whole lot of details in there that I'm not going to go into, but yes, there are time limitations. But yeah, if you know you're going to do it, then let's talk, and I can help. I can work with with foreign counsel.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Switching gears up a little bit. This is a question I always ask all of my guests, especially because, self-care is so important, especially as you are tackling so many things at once right now, being a mom, full-time gig, you've got your book club. Well, yeah, entrepreneurial book club. I mean, you got so many things. What is a non-negotiable self-care routine that you've incorporated into your life that you just have to have?
I mean, do you really even have to ask? You know that I'm going to say that I have to read every night. For me, reading, and this is also what I try to instill in my boys, reading is the one time that I can just turn off my brain.
Wow.
And get engrossed in somebody else's story that's going to entertain, that's going to make me feel, that's going to teach me something. And reading before bed is it's a non-negotiable for me. The TV can be on, my kids can be running, whatever, but you'll always find me reading before bed. And if I don't read for a few days, I'll start getting the itch. I just need to sit down. And on the weekends, a lot of times, my boys will laugh at me and they'll be like, "Mommy, you're always work, tap, tap, tap," or you're relaxing on the couch. And I'm like, okay, well, my relaxing time is when I'm reading, and that's my me time. So it's very funny. But yeah, I have to incorporate reading into my routine. Otherwise, I just don't function as well. Other people say exercise, others say meditation, but reading is my meditation.
Amazing. What book would you recommend for somebody who hasn't read fiction in a long time?
Oh, God, I just read two phenomenal, actually three really, really good books. Very, very different. If you like fast-paced historical fiction, The Goddess of Warsaw was so good. Takes place, kind of weaves in between World War II and the present. That was fantastic. Then I just read a new book that's getting tons of hype called All the Colors of the Dark by, I want to say, Chris Whitaker. Slow burn, mystery, crime, just relationship drama, saga. So good. The writing was absolutely beautiful, phenomenal story. And then, like, by the time I got to the end, I literally woke up yesterday at 7 in the morning and I was just like, I'm just lying in my bed reading until my first meeting. Like, I had to just finish it to know what was going to go on. And then I just read, if you like a family, like the, family stories, this phenomenal story called Most Fun We Ever Had by Clara Lombardo. That was just one of those wonderful family sagas about a couple with 4 children, 4 daughters, and their lives. It was so good. And I was like rushing to read it because she just came out with a new one that sounded really good. So I was like, okay, I want to read her first one before I read the new one. So that's next on my list.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't even tell you the last time I read a fiction book. So
oh my God. I mean, you just hit me up. I'll give you a whole list if you want it.
That's too funny. Well, I appreciate it. Well, Lauren, this has been absolutely a pleasure having you on. I feel like I've learned a lot and learned more about you, which is always wonderful. What is the best way to connect with you?
You can connect with me right on my website, which is storylocklegal.com. You can find me on LinkedIn under Lauren Bercuson, or you can find me on Instagram also at Storylock Legal.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lauren.
Thanks for having me, Natasha. It was so great to be here.
It was awesome. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Climb. Not ready for your journey to end? Make sure to join our online community and subscribe to our YouTube channel to discover your true spirit, strength, and potential today. Details in the show notes below. Need a guide for your journey? Check out our founder, Diane Wong's new book, The Inner Mountain.
Until next time, remember, you are an experiment. Focus on your own path and continue to climb your inner mountain. Thank you.